There comes a moment, usually quiet, often subtle, when something inside you stirs, and a question surfaces that you've been trying to avoid for years. Is this all there is? It doesn't arrive with drama or warning, it slips into your mind in the spaces between distraction, in the hollow silence after a scroll through social media, or in the middle of a conversation that doesn't really mean anything. You look around and realize you're moving through life on rails laid by someone else. You're doing everything you were told to do, showing up, checking boxes, being productive, but it feels like you're playing a character in a script you didn't write. You're not failing, exactly. But you're not fully living, either. You remember, vaguely, a version of yourself that felt more alive. A time when you questioned everything, when you were curious about the world, when you dreamed without apology. When your days were not about surviving expectations but about exploring possibilities. But slowly, the world taught you to stop asking why and to start asking how, to stop imagining and start complying. School taught you to memorize the answers, not to question the structure. Work taught you to be efficient, not to be fulfilled. Society taught you to fit in, not to stand out. And so, you adapted. You built a version of yourself that looked right on paper. You became reliable, productive, stable, maybe even successful. But something deeper remained untouched. A voice within you, faint, but persistent, kept whispering, you were meant for something more. That whisper is what Friedrich Nietzsche spent his life trying to amplify. Though he never said, "This is when your real life begins," in those exact words, every page of his work dares you to wake up to your own existence. He challenges you to stop inheriting meaning from the world around you and start creating it from within. He doesn't ask you to live comfortably, he asks you to live honestly. To look at the life you've been living and ask, is this truly mine? Or is it a collage of other people's expectations? The moment you ask that question, truly ask it, without flinching, that's the moment your real life begins. Not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you've finally stopped lying to yourself. Because you've decided to stop performing for approval, and instead start searching for truth. And that truth might not come easily. It might require letting go of comfort, stepping into discomfort, and embracing uncertainty. But that's the price of freedom. That's the cost of becoming real. Nietzsche believed in a life of self-overcoming, of constant transformation. He believed the most dangerous thing a person could do was to live unexamined, to follow the crowd blindly, to confuse obedience with virtue. He believed your real life starts when you break from the herd, when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Because only then are you truly alive. Only then are you not just surviving days, but shaping them with intention. So if you're hearing that voice now, the one that tells you something about your life isn't aligned, it's not a weakness. It's a beginning. It's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. That quiet discomfort, that restless feeling, that's the earliest sign of awakening. An awakening, Nietzsche would tell you, is the first step toward becoming who you are. So the question is no longer, is this all there is? The real question is, what will you do now that you've started to see clearly? This is your wake-up call. Your life, the one that truly belongs to you, has been waiting for you to begin it. There's a kind of slow, invisible death that happens not in the body, but in the soul. It begins the moment we start hiding pieces of ourselves just to belong. We learn early how to mimic others, to speak like them, think like them, want what they want. We don't call it surrender, we call it maturity, or professionalism, or social intelligence. But what we're really doing is folding in. Shrinking. Dulling the edges of our being until we're just acceptable. And we're rewarded for it. Fitting in brings safety. You blend into the crowd, follow the rules, keep your voice low, your head down. No one asks questions, and you don't risk rejection. But deep down, something suffers. Because you know what you're showing the world isn't the full truth. It's edited, filtered. And after years of living that way, you start to forget what was real in the first place. Nietzsche called this the danger of herd morality, the idea that society values sameness over truth, imitation over individuality. He warned us, the more you live according to the crowd, the more you betray yourself. You become another echo in a room of echoes. And the tragedy is, you might never even notice it, until you feel that subtle ache, that something isn't right. We are taught to be likable, not honest. Polished, not whole. And so the most radical thing you can do in a world of imitation, is to be real. To speak your truth when it shakes your voice. To act in alignment with your inner compass, even if it offends others. To stop being a shadow of who you might have been, and step fully into the light of who you are. Because you were not born to repeat someone else's story. You were born to write your own. And your real life begins, not when you're praised for following the rules, but when you dare to live without asking permission. People often talk about finding themselves, as though the self is a lost object, hidden beneath years of confusion or trauma. But Nietzsche had a different idea. To him, the self wasn't something to find. It was something to build. You are not a fixed identity waiting to be revealed. You are a work in progress, a sculptor and the sculpture, shaping something new with every decision, every challenge, every act of courage or failure. To become who you are, in Nietzsche's view, is not to return to some authentic core. It is to forge that core through effort. Through friction. Through trial and risk and pain and honesty. And most of all, through choice. Each time you say no to something false, you carve away what you are not. Each time you choose what is hard but right, you uncover something essential. And this is not comfortable. This is not the easy way. Becoming who you are means letting go of old roles, child, student, employee, friend, when they no longer reflect you. It means disappointing people who love you for the version of you that no longer exists. It means being misunderstood, judged, and even feared. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is living a life that is not yours. A life of quiet resentment. A life of subtle compromise. Nietzsche believed the greatest act of strength is to live from the inside out. To stop waiting for a clear path and instead walk into the unknown and make one. To take the raw material of your life, your pain, your past, your potential, and shape it into something worthy. Not for applause. Not for perfection. But for truth. You are not here to become what the world wants. You are here to become who you are. And only you can decide what that really means. At the center of Nietzsche's philosophy is a single idea. The will to power. But it's often misunderstood. People think it means the desire to dominate others, to win, to conquer, to rise above. But Nietzsche meant something far deeper, more internal, and more personal. The will to power, to him, was the force inside each of us to overcome, to grow, to become more than we were yesterday. It is not the will to rule the world. It is the will to rule yourself. You feel this power when you keep going after failure. When you rise from heartbreak and begin again. When you take pain and turn it into poetry, or discipline, or transformation. We all suffer. Nietzsche knew that. He said, to live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering. Suffering alone doesn't make you stronger. It's what you do with suffering that matters. Whether you allow it to define you, or refine you. The will to power is the ability to use what was meant to break you, to build you. To respond to darkness not with despair, but with light. To refuse to be a victim, not because life is fair, but because victimhood keeps you small. Because power doesn't come from being untouched by pain. It comes from owning your story and saying, yes, this happened, but I decide what it means. That is the deepest form of power. Not force, but freedom. So when you're tired, doubting, struggling, remember, that inner will, that quiet urge to rise again, is not weakness. It's your strength. It's your birthright. And it's the key to a life that is not dictated by fear, but shaped by purpose. We spend so much of life preparing. We wait. We wait to feel ready, to feel confident, to be given permission. We wait for signs, for clarity, for some imagined perfect moment when everything will line up. But the truth is, it never really does. There is no right moment. There is only this moment, this breath, this now. Your real life doesn't start when you achieve something. It doesn't start when you're less afraid, or more experienced, or more worthy. It starts when you decide. It starts the moment you stop pretending. When you stop hiding behind someday. When you stop outsourcing your meaning to someone else's plan. When you look at your life and say, I will not wait any longer. Because waiting is a habit. And like any habit, it becomes who you are. But so does courage. So does truth. So does action. Nietzsche believed you create meaning through what you do. Not what you feel. Not what you hope. But what you choose, again and again, every day. So the only question that matters now is this. What will you do with your freedom? What will you say that you've been afraid to say? What will you let go of, even if it hurts? What will you begin, knowing full well it might fail? That's what life asks of you. Not certainty, but movement. So if this voice inside you has stirred something, if some part of you feels awake right now, don't ignore it. That feeling is the beginning. That discomfort is the door. And on the other side of it, is a life only you can live. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more. Because this journey of becoming isn't a single step, it's a lifetime. And I'll be here to walk it with you. Let me know in the comments. What's one truth you're finally ready to act on? Your real life begins now. And it begins with you.